enthusiasts, how are you doing? Welcome back. Hope you're all well and I hope you're having a great day. Today we're back on Project Tardis and we're going to refit the inlet manifold, carburetor, connect it all up, and it'll be pretty much ready to start. Although we're not going to start it yet because we're still waiting for the exhaust manifold. And then from then I really want to get stuck into it and get on with it actually. I've got the seals to do, stone chipping, and I've got the rear subframe to do. I don't think that's going to take me much longer, and I want it on the road by sort of June, mid-June, to use it in the summer. So it's full steam ahead with the Project Tardis now, and timing wise it works out well. So you might notice there was no Cooper S video last week, and that is because there's going to be a little bit of a delay on the Cooper S project because Mark has made the decision to order a complete new floor pan for the Cooper S. So that is being made by M Machine. They're made to order, and it will have all the right dents and ripples and brackets and everything like that ready to go. And I think it's the right thing to do. So there's a couple of challenges in the comments on that. A few people said just buy a new shell. A Mark III shell is around about 11,000 pounds from Heritage, and that is just a bare shell. You've then got to seam seal it, paint it, everything like that. So Mark reckons all the parts to do the Cooper S to get it back a solid shell, you know, perfect, as good as a new shell, will be about £3,000 to £4,000. And then obviously there's his time on top of that, but his time doesn't really count. If you were paying a garage to do that and you were paying labour, then yes, it may make more sense just to go and buy a complete shell, because by the time you add labour costs onto it, it's all going to stack up. There is also the point of something like a Cooper S. This sounds absolutely mad, but usually an old rusty Mini, if you put a new shell on that and gave it a new lease of life, you would expect it to be worth more money than a repaired shell. But on something like a Cooper S, you will half the value of it. As soon as it's been reshelled, in people's eyes, that is not an original car. So it might be worth £40,000 repaired and restored back to original, but if you reshelled it, it would only be worth £20,000. So that is why, another reason, we're not putting a new shell on it. It seems madness because a new shell would be, in theory, better. So the idea will be to restore the old shell, fit as many new panels as it needs, and it may end up being 60% new panels, but we'll still be able to say it is the original shell. And obviously it will all be documented on here for people to see. Another challenge in the comments, actually, a few people questioned it. I just wanted to talk about it quickly. Was some people mentioned that Minis are cheap cars, you know, and over the years they have, unfortunately, cheap repairs. People bought them as cheap runabouts. So when it comes to MOT times and they failed, often they didn't have the budget to do expensive repairs on them. So that's why you find a lot of Minis have things like overseals and they have patched repairs, because they weren't premium cars. They weren't, you know, people couldn't afford to do expensive repairs on them, so they got cheap repairs. So that was one of the challenges in the comments I had on the Cooper S, that if cheap repairs hadn't been done on it in the past, it may not have survived to today. So in the past, maybe someone couldn't have afforded to repair that, so they had some cheap repairs on it, and that's why it's still around today, as opposed to being crushed and in a scrapyard. So I completely get that, but my only counter to that, I'm pretty sure the last restoration done on that Cooper S was done in a garage by professionals, and that's where I have a bit of an issue with it, because really, until you know how much that repair costs, you can't really say, you know, how good or bad it was. You know, if someone done it for next to nothing, yeah, it's not a great repair at all, but you've got to take into account what they charge for it. It does, you know, it makes a big difference. If someone charged top money for that though, then that is just completely substandard. And from my understanding, that restoration was done professionally. And then even then, regardless of cost, whether it was cheap or expensive, there are certain professional standards that a professional should stick to. And if the customer wasn't willing to pay enough money to get it done properly, then the professional doing it should have really turned the work away, because they shouldn't have put their name to that. I might be wrong. Mark knows more about the car than me, but it's all been documented. And as far as I know, and I'm going to reserve judgment because I don't know, if someone's paid good money to have that repaired and they've done that standard of repairs on it, then that is a bodge. If someone has paid next to nothing, then I can understand it a bit. But as I say, my understanding of it is it was done in a professional, semi-professional way. And certainly the paintwork on it, so it's been fully resprayed afterwards. Why would you do that standard of repairs and then put filler all over it and then paint it? But yeah, it's up for debate anyway. But yeah, I just wanted to address a couple of those things. Just want to say very quickly as well, thank you to all the people that have gone out their way and bought me a beer. So just massive thank you to those people. You know who you are, especially the ones that have come back and donated more than once and keep coming back. Thank you very, very much. I really, really do appreciate it. It really does make a difference, actually. So let me stop waffling on. I've waffled for quite a while, and let's get into this week's video. Right, it's time to put the Carb and manifold back on. So I've just painted the inlet manifold part with some high temperature engine paint. I haven't bothered doing the exhaust because it gets too hot. The inlet should be just about okay, although they're joined. But the exhaust will get to sort of 200, 250 degrees, so it'll just burn off the paint. One thing I always thought's interesting on Minis is they quite clearly mark in the casting the tappet clearances, so 12 thousandths of an inch. The firing order 1342, make quite a nice job of doing that, but you can't see it once it's on the car. So what was the point in that? I wonder, I suppose this exhaust manifold might have been used on the Morris Minor maybe. I don't know, let me know. Just seems a bit pointless. And it also leaves no chance of updating the specifications afterwards. So once they've cast all these manifolds with 12 thou tappet clearance on, they can't really change it afterwards, can they? But there's our Carb, showing you it in the ultrasonic cleaning video. It's looking lovely. It's all ready to go back on now. If we look over at the car, all down the back here is ready to go. Put new fuel hoses on, new clips. Yeah, let's get this Carb on then. It's a bit of a fiddly job actually. I've already damaged the insulation a bit down the back here, so I'll put a bit of Carb down next time so I don't damage it. So there we go. Good use of a run plaque there. Thanks Riviera Run 2010. Just to protect this bulkhead insulation. I did damage it a little bit, and that's why I used the run plaque the second time. So run plaques, I use them for all sorts of things. Spraying, mixing up filler on, mixing up araldite on. Let me know down the bottom, what else have you used a run plaque for? I bet there's been some Minis over the years that have had bodged up seals and things with run plaques. Hopefully not, but yeah, you can use run plaques for all sorts of things. So that's the inlet manifold on now. I've just got to bolt all that up at the moment. I'm just putting all these big fat washers in the degreaser at the moment. You might have noticed that this is the second time I put the Carb on, because the first time I put that plate in too far forward. And if you want to check, which I should have done first time actually, just put the air filter on and check the holes line up for the air filter. So little tip for you, might save you doing the same mistake as I did. Right then, I know it might seem mad, but this has taken me ages to just do those last bits on the carburetor, but it's all in now. It's all bolted up properly. All the pipes and hoses and everything like that are on. All the cables are connected. Obviously the air filter still needs to go on now. I've put some oil in the dash pot. So really, under the bonnet, we are pretty much done. I need to set the timing when it comes to starting it, but I'm not going to be starting it for a while yet because I've not got the exhaust back on. The exhaust is out of stock, so I'm waiting for that to come back in stock. And when it does come back in stock, one of the next jobs is going to be taking the rear subframe out, which will involve me taking the exhaust off again. So I might as well get the rear subframe done first before I put the exhaust back on and start it. But I'm really pleased. This has taken me a lot longer than I ever expected it to do. I got far more involved than I should have done, and it's actually been not getting me down, but I've just really lost the enthusiasm with it over the last few weeks. I've just, you know, the weather's been nice in the evenings and that sort of thing, so I've been sitting out in the garden and having barbecues and playing golf and stuff like that. But I'm getting to the point now where I want to get Sprout out and give that a drive. That's going to Bewley, PL. Yeah, I just want to get them out and start enjoying them, so I don't want to be working on them. So the next job on this is I'm going to do the seals quick. Hopefully that's not going to take me too long. They just want cleaning back, stone chipping and painting. Literally 2 or 3 days work. It's just waiting for the layers of paint to dry in between. Subframe out, refresh the subframe, back of the boot, and then back together. So it doesn't feel like much, but I've got to work the enthusiasm to get it done. I know this is going to be, so it's ready for fluids now. I'm actually going to put some oil in it now. I've drained out what I think was about 5 litres of oil, and because the engine's been moving around up and down on the hoist, I laid it flat as well. I just took the drain bung out the bottom again, and I took out probably another 2 litres of oil. So I don't know how much these hold the total amount. I'll have to have a look, but obviously there's oil in the torque converter that you can't normally get to. But of course, where I've been moving the engine around, I reckon the oil's come out of the torque converter now. So I'm a little bit worried with first start, so I'm probably going to crank it over for a while to prime the oil up before we put the leads on and start it, because it hasn't had oil in it or hasn't been run for, will be probably 7-8 months. Bit contentious, the oil I'm going to use. Now, please do make your own decisions with oils. Best place to start is look in the handbook to see what the manufacturer recommends for the oils. I took some advice on the Mini Auto forum, which is really useful. I will stick a link in the description. It's all linked to that sort of AP2 weld as well, which is really good for automatics. And there's some real sort of experts that know their stuff, and they recommended getting a 1040 oil, but the spec is a JSO MA2 oil. And as you'll see, that is actually a motorbike oil. So it's a semi-synthetic 4-stroke motorcycle oil. Now you might think, well, why would you put motorcycle oil in a mini automatic? It's because the way the gearbox works and the clutches and brake bands work in the automatic gearbox is very similar to a wet clutch on a motorbike. So this doesn't have some additives that you might get in your standard sort of 2050 or 1040 car oil, because there'll be like additional sort of non-friction additives, and actually for the gearbox to work you don't want the oil to be too slippy, if that makes sense. So the oil I'm going to use is a 1040. The spec is JSO MA2, but please do your research before you put any oil in your car to make sure it's right. I know particularly on sort of the manual gearboxes, there's always a lot of debate between 1040, 2050. I think certainly the MPI's, the standard spec in the handbook says 1040, but I've got a feeling, or I certainly remember reading a story that was all done for cost of servicing and that sort of thing. 1040 was the oil they carried in barrels in the Rover dealerships, and it would have been silly just to carry different oil for Mini. So I think they put 1040 in Minis. Again, I might be wrong on that, but yeah, I'm pleased with how that's all turned out under there now. Yeah, just on to the next bit now. Thanks for tuning back in. Hope you enjoyed the content this week, and catch you next time.